It's the two megastars summer mashup. The awesome iPhone on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0 so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires port of number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS in past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Before we begin our episode, a quick shout out to Hubhopper. Hubhopper is India's very own podcast app with largest directory that brings you thousands of unique shows and stories from every imaginable genre. You can now listen to your favorite podcast Audiogyan on Hubhopper, that is HUBHOPPER. So go ahead and download the Hubhopper app from Play or App Store today, and if you like it, review and share it with your friends. And now, starting off with your show. This episode is in association with Design Up. Design Up is India's go-to conference for design and tech and rated among the world's most exciting events by Cods.com. Design Up returns to Bangalore on October 25th to 27th with a stellar speaker lineup, actionable talks, and masterclasses. Design Up covers diverse topics like UI, UX, product design, AR, VR, emerging interfaces, and more. For more details, visit designup.io.
Welcome to Audiogyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
Today I have Nilofer Suleman with us on Audiogyan. Nilofer started her artistic career as a cartographer and miniature artist, collecting and recreating Columbus-esque old maps, creating rivers and mountains in the delicate inkspelt detail. Her work, inspired by Indian typography and street graphics, is a coalition of styles that have taken Indian graphic culture onto the contemporary platform. Nilofer's paintings are witty and colorful illustrations of India, offering vibrant vantage points and comical observations about the city. And today we are here to explore more and some nuances of her drawing with her. So thank you, Nilofer, for giving us your time, and it's a real honor to have you on Audiogyan.
Thanks a lot, Kedar. It's great being here.
Yeah. So as I mentioned to you, we'll be speaking about nuances of drawing and trying to understand your process as well. So the first thing which I want to ask you is your work, which I have seen at least, has a very distinct style, identity to it. It has a lot of Indian element also. So can you tell us what was your process to land in this form of style?
So I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Indore. And I grew up watching billboards which were hand-painted and film posters which were back then hand-painted. And the shops had beautiful signboards with lotuses and peacocks and snakes and Indian gods and goddesses. And I grew up looking at Ravi Verma's works. Okay. And it was wonderful for me, and I could identify with that a lot. And later on, I did my master's in psychology. Oh. And much later, I did my diploma in fine art. And when I started 22 years ago, I studied miniatures, Indian and Western. And then I got into map making and cartography. And I tried the styles of various Renaissance artists, and I tried to copy all of them, and I tried to copy Ravi Verma, and whom I greatly admire even now. And then I also tried my hand at abstract. So it was like 8 to 10 years of miniatures and cartography, and then maybe 4 years of abstract. And somehow Cubism is a very Western concept, and I could not relate to it. And my training was in Indian miniatures. So I wanted to do work which involved a lot of details. And I genuinely believe that God lies in details. And I like to basically mull over things and do them slowly and with a lot of love and affection. And it reflects in my work. And the thing is that I saw the Indian color palette and the Indian motifs and iconography and typography, which I thought was very beautiful and something I could relate to. Okay. And I could bring my details into it also.
But can you tell me what could you relate to? I mean, any particular instance, any particular dominant characteristic?
Yeah, for instance, we grew up, in front of a theatre, Maratha Mandir in Bombay, and we saw these lovely billboards and signboards and film stars coming and red carpets and people coming in and Pakis are running for so many years and Shagid running for many years. And I remember sitting on the aisle, the usher would let us in and my brother and I would just sit there and watch these movies over and over again. And somehow that left a very strong mark on my psyche. And I wanted to bring that. I wanted to bring real India to people rather than make it very esoteric and something that you can't relate to. And I wanted it to be something that everybody can relate to. And like a slice of daily life.
But what made you realize that this is the style you would like to explore more on or evolve further?
The reason was that I can't do the same thing again. I find it very, I feel very lethargic to repeat and to be repetitive. So I like to try something new every time. And this gives me an opportunity, I can come up with a new narrative. I can have different characters telling different stories. And it challenges me more when I bring in new elements. So with this, I could bring in streets from Bombay, streets from Chennai, streets from Delhi, and Chor Bazaar and Chandni Chowk and all of that. And that made it very interesting for me.
I mean, in that case, India would be the most fertile land to be in, right?
It is, absolutely. Like, I think Madurai is beautiful and all the places in the south are lovely. And I started with the Holi series. So I did a whole lot of paintings on Bangalore. And then I did some paintings on Bombay. So I did Chor Bazaar and the Parsi cafes, Irani cafes, and streets of Bombay. And then I did one show in Delhi, which was like streets of Delhi. So there were, generally I take inspiration from what I see around me when I travel. And there are a lot of photographs that are taken over a period of time which are, very helpful.
But can you tell us, like, what could be the process or like possible ways of discovering one's style? I mean, I understand that there can't be one or two thumb rule kind of a thing, but any guidelines?
From what I've taught in many schools so far, I've been teaching for the last 22 years. And what I've realized is that you need to be technically great, but creativity comes where technique ends. So, so you need to be technically savvy and you need to try different media and different styles until you come upon something that is your own. And over a period of doing, I'm not saying to repeat anything, but you can, there is so much to explore and so much to see and so many colors to look at and so many different styles to understand. And I find the life history of very many artists also very inspiring. And I think for a child, if they need to come up with their own style, they need to learn for many years, and they need to be I think they need to be very free in their thinking. And which children are like wild horses, and you need not tame them. So if you just let them be, they come up with great ideas.
But this has been one of the favorite questions, like what comes first? I mean, skill or technique? And as you mentioned, creativity comes after you have mastered the technique, right? So in this case, how can one narrow down on the technique itself before exploring anything?
So the technique is given. Technique is already there. I mean, there are several techniques that you can, and different pedagogies that you can work out with children. But I think creativity is something which is there in every child, and it need not be only in visual arts. It could be in performing arts. So there are times when I have actually in schools where I've really tried very hard to teach a child how to draw and paint, and have felt very frustrated that I haven't been able to do so. And I've seen the same child on the stage performing beautifully, and it's very humbling because I realize that people are good at various things. So if you are not good at visual art, you could be great at performing art, or you could be good at something else.
So speaking about other disciplines also, I would like to understand, Nilofer, what is your source of inspiration? I mean, how can one improve his or her own sensibilities as an artist, as a performer, or as a painter itself. Yeah.
It's the iconography that I see around me. It's the life that I see around me, people that I see around me. So a lot of people that I have drawn as characters and in caricature style in my own paintings have been people that I have known. For instance, Chinema, the first protagonist in my work, was a Kannada teacher in my child's school, in my son's school. And then there is this carpenter who comes regularly, even now, to our house, Jairam. And he's one of the characters. So it is basically people that I see, and people, sometimes I see a person standing at a bus stop and I feel that there's a lot of character on the face, and I love the hairstyle and the way he's standing. And I either sketch it immediately or I take a photograph of it, and that becomes inspiring for me. Or if I'm traveling to, various places like Pondicherry or Fort Kochi or Hampi, there are so many things on the roadside which I find inspiring. Like for instance, the way people, at early morning people gambling in front of a chai shop. And it's basically local life. I like people the way they are, and I like to show them the way they are. So while there is a narrative and a story, I don't want to make it esoteric. And I don't want it to be, because I feel that there is humor in theatre, there is humor in lyrics, in songs, but unfortunately art has become for the elite and the intellectuals, whereas art should be for everybody. Correct. It should be something that everybody should be able to look at and laugh and enjoy and understand.
But just to dig further into this, when you observe something, you just don't see, you try and connect with it at some point, and try and abstract things so that you can depict in a way that it could be relatable to the viewer, right?
Yeah, so it is an exaggeration of reality. When I draw and paint things, there are a lot of other things which come in from a lot of folk art. So there are things that I see in Jain cosmology which are beautiful, and Indian miniatures which are beautiful, and the Persian miniatures, and there are a lot of gods and goddesses which have been drawn by Ravi Verma and other artists, calendar artists of his times. And I also love drawing cinema posters, and because I feel that God and cinema are the only two hopes that Indians have. And we draw, I think we relate to it because they both give us a lot of hope. So I like life as it is. I like living it in my paintings.
Interesting. Nilofer, I would like to just go back to the earlier question which I had. What is the most important aspect when someone is drawing? I mean, is it the medium, the style, or the content? Which matters most?
The content. The content. The idea is the most important. And the fact that you're constantly challenging yourself and to be passionately be in it till it is done. So I can't do two paintings at a time. I can only work on one at a time, because I need to fall in love and and that affection has to show. So I'm constantly mesmerized by what I'm doing, and I'm thinking about it day and night. So it keeps running in my head all the time. Okay. And and it's a long process. I take about 45 to 50 days to complete a work.
Oh, and is this irrespective of the size of the canvas?
I generally do about 4 feet by 4 feet works, because I like to put in details, and in a smaller canvas I can't. Correct. So I feel restricted by a smaller canvas. So the minimum which I really enjoy is that size. So I feel skill is extremely important, because I don't think I have a certain amount of disdain towards lack of skill and I feel sometimes there could be a long rope that is given to people, and so I feel creativity alone is not enough. I feel you need to be skilled also. I mean, you need to understand, and you also need to have a deep understanding of history and deep understanding of what goes behind it. And, for instance, if you're doing a map, you can't just be drawing it technically without understanding the background of maps. Yeah. Or, for instance, if you're doing Indian gods and goddesses, it's always nice to know Hindu mythology. And the stories are beautiful, and then it kind of reflects in your work. So I feel it is very important, and it happens naturally. I mean, the more passionate you are about something, the more you read about it. And the more you're drawn to it, the more you search.
But as a painter, I need to know the context. I mean, that's what you're saying. So, what happens when this, like the new generation of artists who are depicting gods and goddesses in their own way, what happens there? I mean, do they need to know the history behind it?
That is entirely fine. I think that is to each his own. So I don't have any. I feel anything that can be done very creatively and beautifully is worth it. It's worth living a life like that.
Context, do they need to know the history of
If somebody is changing it, well and good. Why not? And people have to change it. You have to. So when I said that my work is an exaggeration of reality, it is not a billboard as I see it or a shop as I see it. It is a lot of other things that I have seen before, or things which are coming from my own imagination. And it is a story that you weave. And you have characters and you weave a story, and you have it's an unspoken or an unwritten language which is communicated. So how you interpret it is entirely up to you.
Correct. That's very interesting. Nilofer, I would like to conclude with one last question, which is with the new media coming into our lives, there are different ways of showcasing your work and sharing your work in the social community, social circuit. What could be, or what should be the process of being reflective about your own work? Because there are people out there, there are artists out there who just create something and put it up online to either share or to get feedback or to have critical commentary on their work. So in this case, is the own self-reflection about your work, about the satisfaction about your own work dying down?
Sure. So I don't know about others, because I definitely respect what others are doing. And I can only speak for myself. What I have realized is that I need to evolve very gradually. I can't just suddenly evolve into a different style or do something completely different. So my style, as I feel now, my colors have changed as I've grown older. My style has changed. The details have become more, the colors are more subtle, but it has all happened very gradually. And it is not, of course I love appreciation, but it is just something that I've loved for so many years. And it just keeps driving me every morning. So, I work till 4 every night, and I get up early morning and I start my work. And this is something I've enjoyed, and something it's been like a magnet in my life. I've always wanted to get back to it every day.
Yeah, but if you have to give some quick thoughts on what could be the process of being reflective about your own work?
So for me, I think it is very important to be able to observe. I feel we learn most through observation. And the human eye is very sensitive. There are things that registered, they are there in our memory and in our subconscious, which we have seen and not really recorded. And it is all there, and we need to do a bit of mind mapping and searching and a lot of introspection when we get into doing something, when we start something. Also, I feel it is very important to have immense amount of respect for your work, which I feel is the most important thing. I think it's love and passion and respect and affection towards what you're doing. And it has to be the most important thing in your life. At least for me, it is. It has been. So it also doesn't matter whether if it takes 30 days or it takes 50 days or 60 days. I just want to go do something that I fall in love with, something that is difficult to part with.
But how do you bring that commitment, that sort of a commitment of 40 or 50 days for just one artwork? I mean, it sounds very unreal in today's time, at least.
So I also think I belong to a very different generation. And I'm not used to instant gratification. I'm not good with Photoshop, so I have to do everything by hand. And so that definitely takes time. And for me, this is Saraswati. So this is everything for me. It is the most important thing in my life. So there is no question of getting bored of it. I do get tired sometimes, which is a physical tiredness. And that is why I love teaching children, because on the weekends when I teach children, it's kind of I get respite from my work. And I like hearing new ideas. I enjoy being with them.
Correct. That's beautiful. All right, Nilofer, if we can conclude, let's say like all the Audiogyan listeners for now are your students for next a minute or so. Considering all your experience, what could be the few things you would like to conclude with?
Yes, I think if you really want to get somewhere in life, you need to dig in the same place over and over again. So when you dig hard enough, you will draw water one day. And you need to, you need to pursue your dreams, and it becomes a reality one day. So I quite believe in what Malcolm Gladwell said about in Outliers, about putting in those 10,000 hours of work, and whether it gets you, success or not, it makes you technically an expert, and it definitely makes you somebody to reckon with. I think it is very important. And also, I think it gives you a higher purpose in life. And we all need a higher purpose. We don't want to just lead a mundane life. We don't want to go on doing the things that everybody does. Right. So we want to create an identity, and we want to create, not a name for oneself, but a reason to respect oneself.
That's quite inspirational. Okay, I think this is good. And thank you, Nilofer, for giving us your time. And it was pleasure talking to you. And I hope to have you again on Audiogyan sometime later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kedar. It was so nice meeting you. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on Audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.
It's the two megastars summer mashup, the awesome iPhone, on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0, so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires port in of number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS and past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.